What's going on, everybody? Jeff Holiday here, and today I wanted to bring you something that I actually recorded about a week and a half ago. You see, before I decided to drop everything and make that very quick pandemic video to try and counter, an emergency, a blossoming up of viral spread, propaganda, and pseudoscience. Before I had to do that, I had recorded a video on another very similar video. This is the video here. This is Dr. Shiva Ayyadurai, MIT, crushes Dr. Fauci, exposes Birx, Clinton's, Bill Gates, and the WHO by Kirstie R with a smaller channel, but 7.3 million views. And this is from the YouTube channel of this lady here, who, for the most part, does like very conspiracy theory-minded stuff. However, she is an actual legit news anchor for a fringe, little tiny, very specific political motivation channel on the Dish Network. So there is that. But since now that I have the one that was more immediate out of the way, because this video has been around for a while, I would like to give that to you now, because this is some lunatic stuff, okay? So, enjoy. Here we go.
And with that, we'll bring in a man who has multiple degrees from MIT, including a PhD in biological engineering. He is also running for Senate in 2020. Welcome, Dr. Shiva. So nice to have you on the show today.
Great to be here, Christina. Hope you're well.
What do you think? How has the president handled the outbreak?
Well, he's handled, as the best he could, given the fact that he's surrounded by sharks. What I'm talking about is Fauci. Unfortunately, this guy Fauci has been in this environment for nearly 4 decades across multiple presidents, and he's essentially embedded into the scientific establishment, which has created an unfortunate lie about the immune system and an unfortunate lie about the solution to something like this called the coronavirus, or more importantly, infectious disease, without any real emphasis, which is a real issue, about the fact that it is a overactive, dysfunctional, weakened immune system that overreacts, and that's what causes damage to the body.
Okay, a couple of things that we have to unpack on this that's pretty important. Number one is Dr. Shiva here. He has a history of sounding extremely booty-bothered and jealous of anybody else in the scientific establishment, which he so willfully disparages. But also, when somebody claims that science overwhelmingly has gotten something wrong, it usually means that they're about to say a bunch of bullshit. And then third, you can always tell somebody you can trust when they appear in an interview and they very prominently have their books displayed on their shelf behind them, because everybody does that, casually in their home. Let's make sure we have a microphone over in one corner, my awards, and then my books that are for sale. Check them out on Amazon.com.
And unfortunately, Fauci has not talked about that, because the truth of that leads to a solution which has nothing to do with mandating vaccines and shutting down the country. And that's what's unfortunate.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. He's an Antivaxxer. Just, that's not how he would say it. He would say it more along the lines of like, I'm a vaccine skeptic, or, I'm studying the potential hazards of vaccines. But nah, he's an Antivaxxer.
Look, if you look, Christina, at the typical MD, many of them go into wanting to become a doctor out of some noble service. But fundamentally, the medical school education is really a big pharma medical education where the doctor is really trained, if this, then this. And the then is typically a pharmaceutical drug or some harsh medical intervention. Now, if you look at someone like a Fauci...
That's the most reductive baseline bullshit statement, I swear to God. Hey, look... all of medical school, apparently across the entire planet, is nothing but just an if-then flow chart system for pumping out drugs sold by the pharmaceutical industry. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm a very big critic of the pharmaceutical industry, but that statement is idiotic.
Fauci and Birx, they're sort of at the top of their quote-unquote game, which means they're highly embedded into the big pharma model of medical education and the big pharma model of what the solution is. And that solution is typically a direct line from this disease, find typically a virus or a bug, and then recommend a vaccine or some harsh chemical solution. And most of that has to do with profiting the very, very big pharma companies. And so if you look at someone like Fauci, he's a guy who
architected... And here's one of the big problems of that argument that you will hear time and time again from anti-vaxxers. Well, you see, the vaccines are all about a money-making scheme for the big pharma. I know that doesn't even make any sense. If big pharma was trying to monetize on people suffering from vaccine-preventable diseases, they wouldn't make vaccines, they would make treatments. So you had to keep taking the treatments. Vaccines are not a very profitable model. You mean I go and I get this thing, which is most of the time free, and then I don't have to ever go and get another one? Well, that's not a very good model. These people should go and talk to, like, EA Games or Activision or something and learn how to make some actual damn money. You need a subscription model for your drugs, for your vaccines. You need loot boxes for your medication. Jesus.
He prides himself on connections with Hollywood and Elton John and all this, and I think there's a group trying to make him the sexiest man alive on people. But you're talking about a guy who's embedded into the deep state, and he's your typical example of the worst of the modern scientific establishment.
You can hear the jealousy dripping off this man that Dr. Fauci is being considered sexy by women across America. I mean, look, this is the guy who claims that he invented email. He invented email in 1978, 1979, even though we'd already had the basis for email for years by then, like 6 or 7 years. The reason why he claims he invented email is because his email service that he kind of coded when he was a teenager, that was very similar to things we already had, he claims he's the first one to call it email. So he invented email. He invented the name email. This dude is a constant supply of shooting his shot poorly and getting mad that he doesn't get worshipped for it.
When you have the level of things that he had to go through, I think the deep state's really effect was to hit him with this coronavirus. And what's the end goal? Well, as you just rightfully said, when Obama was running, you had nearly...
Hang on. I think we need to really understand what this guy just said. Okay, we need to really hear his words carefully. Okay, listen to this.
The deep state's really effect was to hit him with this coronavirus. And what's the end goal?
Okay, one more time. Let's make sure we really hear what he's saying. Listen to this.
However, when you have the level of things that he had to go through, I think the deep state's really effect was to hit him with this coronavirus. And
the deep state hit Trump with this coronavirus. This is a man who already is disparaging germ theory. He disparages germ theory. Is an anti-vaxxer, wildly claims that he invented email, is jealous of Dr. Fauci for being considered sexy by a couple of bored housewives, and now he's saying the deep state is who hit Trump with the coronavirus. I feel like I need to remind you guys that this video now has over 7 million views. Okay?
What you're looking at is a strategic move to essentially destroy the economy, as using it as a vehicle to impose not only vaccine mandates, which we could talk about, but also as an opportunity to suppress dissent and destroy freedom, as a way to curtail what a guy like Donald Trump can do, what people in America can do. And this is
so the deep state has apparently intentionally released coronavirus in China so that it would subvert the ability of Donald Trump to be an effective president, and also to help push a vaccine mandate and to curtail individual personal freedoms. Okay, all right. You know what? Nothing about that sounds completely and utterly batshit insane at all. Okay, buddy? No, it sounds great. Let's go.
And as I've shared in one of my videos, the ventilators actually can burst and further damage the lungs, because the real issue here is the lungs are being filled with fluid, and the fluid is occurring because of the overreactive immune system, which can really be addressed by IV vitamin C, high dosage. And that is not in the discourse. In fact, 80 to 90...
See, the problem is that you could cure the coronavirus with vitamin C. Just drink your fucking orange juice, guys. See, the reason why everybody is getting so sick is they're just not drinking their orange juice. And that information is being suppressed by the deep state, right? Is that right? Is it
90% of the people go on ventilators are dying. So this is essentially a death sentence that they're putting people on.
Wow, that is so interesting. Well, President Donald Trump said that the cure cannot be...
That's not interesting. It's a lie. What the fuck?
...worse than the problem, and yet here we are. We continue to be on lockdown status. Do you think the economy should have been closed in the first place? And is this the new status quo anytime we see a new virus?
It's a great question. In my letter to the president, which I sent on March 23rd, I said, look, we live in the era of personalized and precision medicine, which is an expertise of mine, which I get invited all over the world to talk about. What that means is one size does not fit all. You don't lock down everyone. That's what Fauci's model is. It's a medieval model of medicine. Mm-hmm. And so what we fundamentally have is the approach that we should be taking is taking the people who are truly immunocompromised, truly have COVID-19. Fine, they should be isolated, boosted up with immunosupporting things like vitamin A, D, and C. Those of us who are well, we should be back to work. We should be running this economy. Okay, if you want to take something to support your immune system, do that, which should be the vitamin A, the D, etc. One of the two most disastrous things here are we're socially distancing people and hiding them. Go look at the research, a landmark study. When you isolate people, that is one of worse than the detriments from obesity, smoking, and heart disease. Social isolation actually leads to upregulation of inflammatory compounds in the body and down-regulation of antiviral compounds.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's analyze this for a second. His idea, and I've heard this many, many times now over the past couple of months, is that we should take the people who are most at risk and we should socially isolate them. Perhaps put them in the camps or whatever. And then everybody else should just go ahead and go back to work. The problem with this is still the issue with the gestation period, the potential gestation period of COVID-19, that it can lay pretty much dormant for 2 weeks. So when exactly do we let all of these immunocompromised people out of the camps? And what does that infrastructure look like? And how do we determine which person is specifically most at risk? Because we know that you can just simply kind of catch a bad break and it can kind of fucking kill you. But of course, there are certain people who are in much higher risk factors. What about, say, you have a nursing home, which is one of the most deadly places to be if you are old and have an immunocompromised system and you've got this pandemic going on. Well, who's feeding you? Those are people who are not immunocompromised and they have to work, but they also have their own families to get back to. They have their own entire a system of livelihood that they have to get back to. Are they then forced to isolate as well? Are we now creating an entire division in society where you have everybody that's necessary for the infrastructure to maintain the care of people who have to be isolated from everybody else? And how deep do we go on that? How far do we go to artificially create this division of society? Now, I understand that the whole concept of social distancing right now with everybody involved is really not a perfect situation, and nor is it easy. I don't even know if I would want to make the argument that it's easier than what we're talking about now. I don't know. But I will say that at the very least, we're putting the responsibility on everybody. That's the basic concept. And lastly, there's this argument that he makes that, well, social isolation leads to increases in this, and this, and lowers our immune response to this. And sure, yeah, it's true. There are disastrous effects of social isolation, just like there is disastrous effects of stress, depression, any number of things out there in society. But those are things that also can be addressed. And it's also only a temporary measure.
What we really need to talk about, if we truly care about public health, is building up people's immune system. But that's not what Fauci and company are concerned about. Their model is big ag, which dirty air, dirty water, dirty food. They want people to consume not food that's healthy for them. And then the solution is vaccine mandates. Think about what's going to happen a year from now.
Here we go.
When you go to get your driver's license, Christina, where's your vaccine card? And Fauci's already talking about that.
Yes.
Can you go to a gym?
Yes, he is.
This is about developing a police state. I hate to use these very harsh terms, but that is what we're talking about.
He doesn't hate to use those very harsh terms. He thrives on it. But okay, go ahead. Go off, King. Go off.
Control of the individual. It's a very, very dangerous time, but it's also an opportunity for Americans to go back to our roots, which is freedom, which is basically listening to truth and basically starting to, take back what is really ours, which is our truth, freedom, and health. And Fauci's not about that. He serves the masters of Bill Gates, the Chan Zuckerbergs, the Clintons, the CDC, the WHO, and in fact, the Chinese. This is what we're seeing before in front of our eyes, is exporting Chinese model of governance, top down, controlling the last oasis of freedom, which is our human body.
And it's very concerning. Wow. It's very scary, as well as social distancing. And we just have a little bit of time left here. Another thing they're pushing are these masks and these gloves. And I'm seeing people making these makeshift homemade masks and literally putting their lives in the hands of these masks and gloves. How well do these actually work? And you touched on it just briefly, but what is the real solution to coronavirus?
Look, the real solution, Christina, as any solution to any pathogen, we need to understand that the medical establishment, the pharmaceutical medical establishment for hundreds of years has built its entire foundation of always blaming a virus or a germ.
Okay.
Always.
Okay.
So when scurvy came around, remember scurvy when people's teeth would fall out and they had bleeding gums? Oh, it must be a virus.
Do you remember scurvy? No. No! Ain't nobody remembers scurvy! You remember scurvy?
The reality is a strong immune system always handles this beautifully. It's the weakened immune system. So all those masks and all this stuff, people didn't wear this for humanity, okay? The issue is, how do you beef up the immune system? As I wrote to the president,
oh my God.
Vitamin D is an antimicrobial.
Oh my God.
Why do you think in many of these hot countries you don't hear any about this? Vitamin A.
So, again, this is so incredibly mega cringe. What's so bizarre about this dude is that he willfully, and I know it's willfully because he does possess the intelligence to grasp the concepts of this. So he either willfully believes or willfully deceives on how this whole process works. The whole point of wearing a mask is to try not to spread the virus. It doesn't matter if you are immune from the virus. You could have already had the virus and fought it off and have the antibodies. That doesn't mean that necessarily you can't get a secondary infection. It just means your body will fight it off. But in the meantime, is it possible that you can get that infection and then spread that infection in a very short period of time? Yes, of course you can. Of course you can. It's not like your body has laser turrets or some shit. We're like, oh, there's some COVID-19 in me. It's all gone. It's all gone immediately. Of course it's possible. Of course it is. And the whole point of practicing just good behaviors overall is to try not randomly track it everywhere. But either this guy is intentionally trying to be deceitful, or he has brainworms. I don't know which. I don't know. I can't get over scurvy, though. Is this man a 300-year-old pirate? One other thing that I really want to point out about this wingnut, because he is a wingnut, undoubtedly, a wild, crazy, wannabe, perpetually jealous, litigious wingnut. He published a paper, is back in 2015, about GMOs. He's very much against GMOs. He thinks GMOs are dangerous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the thing is, he put out this paper, and it was all about GM soybeans. And he used predictive computer modeling to try and determine whether or not genetically modified soybeans would be, in this specific way, biologically different than non-GMO soybeans. And his paper, his predictive computer modeling, said, yeah, they are. They're wildly biologically different. And so then some scientists, some actual real scientists, went and did what a sane person would do, and they physically tested the soybeans that he's talking about, and they were like, actually, no, they're the same. They're fine. And that's the problem. That's the problem. Is people like him, people like Stephanie Seneff, okay, get this idea that they can just fudge or manipulate or in some way use predictive modeling to try and make a compelling argument. Like, here's evidence, here's data. It's useless. It's useless. None of it makes any sense, and it does not help their arguments at all if you have even just the barest inkling of understanding what they're talking about. But they rely on people not knowing enough and then just simply blindly following what they're trying to say. And that's kind of evil. Anyway, that's going to be it for me today, guys, but I did want to let you know that this is the second in 3 of viral videos involving this specific pandemic and the information that's coming out and being put out there being horrifically wrong and widespread and widely accepted. Because if you think that Dr. Judy Mikovits, with her first real appearance back after a while was the Plandemic movie. Oh no, that's the second documentary that she's been in, and that's full of pseudoscience about this pandemic that we're in right now. The second one. So look out for the next one here in a little bit. But yeah, from my family to yours, I hope you're well. I hope they're well. See you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.